Hey, if you're a fan of Pearl Jam, I think you'll enjoy this video. Those of you that follow this channel have probably seen some of the videos where I open up records, and I opened this one up a while ago. This album, 10, remember when this came out?
It's awesome.
Dude, the whole world was changing so fast.
Yep.
When this stuff hit, because Alice in Chains came out in 90, and then it just seemed like it was especially when Nirvana hit with Nevermind. That's when everything really tipped.
Yeah. Game over.
And
for
just
all the hair LA bands.
Gone.
Because the industry just was like, this is hot, that is not.
Right.
And just switched. And radio play, everything just kind of made that huge shift to the Seattle grunge scene.
And there was something to be said for it, because I actually have to admit I loved it. And there was something where we've talked about this a bunch, where it was the pendulum swing, where we'd gone so far into the the 80s metal thing and the hairspray and the whatever, that there was this time for everything to change. And
just a different sound.
Yeah,
altogether.
Exactly.
No more guitar solos, better, less riff driven, more song driven. And it's not to say a lot of these aren't riff driven, but it was just a paradigm shift in how the music and how the sound and how the mixing and everything. Because
through the 80s it got to the point that was so excessive. It wasn't just the hairspray and the makeup, it was the who can sing higher than, and it kept getting to the point that you have Steelheart, where the guy sounds like he's a whistle because he's singing so high, and then who can play the fastest. And you got people double neck guitars on two different. It just became almost like a circus.
True.
And then this was a response to it, because all of a sudden it was like none of that was involved with it.
You had the Poison and the partying and the thing, and now you got the Seattle sound was different. It was more like when we covered. When we did Facelift in Alice in Chains, that was like the beginning of the change, right? And it was like this whole new sound, and where everything was like. And he had mentioned, Jerry was kind of saying when we were covering that the sound was kind of from the environment of Seattle, the rainy, the darker, and you kind of get some of that through Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, all these bands. It was awesome.
And there's an interesting parallel that people made.
Because I like that darker type stuff.
Me too. And there's an interesting parallel that people made at the time when this was coming out, because a lot of people were comparing this to the stuff that was happening in the late 60s and early 70s. And there's an actual interesting parallel there, because so many bands that came from those eras were from like Birmingham or from these factory towns in England, where it was dreary.
We touched on that during that Alice in Chains things too. It's like, it's a dreary place. We're going to write dreary songs.
And so you end up with Black Sabbath.
Yep.
You end up with this darker sound, the machine sound and whatever.
Sure.
That was where that. And so this similarly was a response to its environment, where a lot of the stuff in the 80s was a response to the excess of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I got this, and I haven't even opened it yet to look inside. This is obviously a new release, because by the time this album came out, I was no longer buying records.
Yeah.
Everything was CD. So of course I had this on CD. I had all that. I bought all of that stuff back then, and my CDs are long gone. Mm-hmm. So I thought, you know what? I just need to get even though this is not an original version, I wanted to get a release of this. So
it's really cool.
I'm going to open this up. And I'm going to show you. This is, I think also Kurt Bartlett might have showed this to me too.
Okay.
Because this is how I used to open up records. Now maybe this is wrong, but this is how I used to open up records.
Record opening technique.
And what it was is you open it with friction.
Okay.
So you would do this. Yeah. And there you go. It's very thin plastic, and so just this tiny little bit of heat or something from the friction or whatever, it just opens it, and it doesn't. I've never seen it damage the thing. It just takes care of it. It just does the job. It takes care of it right there.
Okay.
Anyway, and I think
just ran my nail.
Well, you're smarter than I am.
Well, no, I'd get the paper cut.
I had my. That was the little technique. So let's just take a look and see what this looks like in here, because we hadn't seen it. That's a simple
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
I wonder what the band's called. So let's take a look at the back here. All right, this is kind of cool. So this band, of course, is basically a spin-off, for all intents and purposes, a spin-off of Mother Love Bone.
Yeah, repurposed because, the lead singer passed away.
Right. So it was Andy Woods, and he died, I think, of a heroin overdose. And if I'm not mistaken, he and Chris Cornell were roommates. I could be wrong about that, but I think that was right.
Good
but anyway,
friends or
Chris
something like that.
and Andy were really good friends, and so you had a couple of guys in that band, Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard, who then became the beginnings of Pearl Jam. But another interesting thing happened in between, and that was the Temple of the Dog.
Right. Great album.
Well,
kind of a tribute to Mother Love Bone.
Yeah, it was a thing that they wrote because of as a tribute
to Andy.
Chris Cornell had basically written some songs for in tribute to Andy Woods, and is it Woods or Wood? Man, it's been so long I can't remember. I think it's Woods, but anyway, whatever. I'm
going to go with Wood
important.
then.
But I remember so many of these things when they came out. But you remember that video?
For Hunger Strike?
Temple of the Dog for Hunger Strike? Oh, my gosh.
Hunger Strike is the first time we hear Eddie Vedder, because 10 hadn't come out yet, You see Chris Cornell, who is this, like, godlike rock he's
star.
awesome. A great...
The earrings, the hair, I've never seen... that video...
is great.
Hunger Strike. You've never seen a cooler-looking rock star than Chris Cornell, and his voice is just
all over the
everywhere.
place.
And then there's I'm growing hungry. You got Eddie Vedder and he was awesome too.
Yeah, baritone type, super lower voice.
But you put those two voices together.
Not sure if he's baritone, but I'm just saying.
Whatever it is, that sounds good.
It sounds good to me.
You put those two guys together in that song.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. Kind of became this kind of classic tune. Just from that.
And let's not kid ourselves. 1990, 91, when this is all coming out, MTV's still as strong as ever, if not
that's true,
peaking. And so that's where we got to see the video and be like, "Ooh, what's this?"
Yeah, because they had. Because
you remember, like when 10 came out, you had Jeremy,
and Jeremy was the last video.
Even Flow,
Alive.
Alive. I mean, all that was, all over MTV. MTV was all over the grunge scene for sure. I mean, you had the Nirvana and all that.
Dude, the first time I saw...
Man, the Box was playing all the time.
But this album, I remember the first time I saw Alive on MTV. And it's one of those moments of, what in the heck is this?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I think it was a similar thing when they did Even Flow. That was also, I think both of those were some sort of live setting.
Yeah, I like the Even Flow video because Eddie's he's got like almost like that army jacket, and he's in the crowd, and his hair's really long, and he's like climbing up on the wall. I mean, it's really cool stuff. I mean, you're like, whoa, and people are into it. But the other cool piece, the visual piece that's cool about it, is they weren't like dressed up. They just were wearing, the flannel, everybody, the grunge flannel,
the kind
look.
of Seattle look, with the Doc
Seattle
Martens. A lot of people did those boots.
Yeah, I think that was cool. I mean, that was definitely different than everything we would seen up until then, So visually, you're like, whoa, these guys are rocking, and they're cool, and they're just.
And the sound
could have came just out of the crowd, grabbed the bass, grabbed the guitar,
that's what it
grabbed the
looked like.
mic, and started just taking care of business.
And yet they created this something about them, because you take these guys that were in the fronts of these bands, like Eddie Vedder. There really was just something about that guy that was just
great,
electric, right?
Yeah, great songwriter, different than what we'd seen. So, I mean, someone that's not singing high, someone that's thoughtful, is writing exceptional lyrics, deeper meaning lyrics. And
then you go to these
different
other bands,
presence,
and each one of these guys has this kind of electricity, has this X factor about them. Because then you have Chris Cornell, he had some sort of X factor.
Right.
And Kurt Cobain, that if there was ever a I don't understand it X factor, he had it. Who knows? You could look and go, I don't know what it is about this dude, but there's something amazing about this guy. And then you go down, you start Lane Staley, and similarly, you look at that guy and this is one of the coolest looking and sounding, and then the music, it had that dark energy, and it also didn't have the let's see who can play faster than everybody else. You listen to something like that guitar solo in Man in the Box, and it's hard to imagine just a cooler guitar solo. The tone is amazing.
Yeah, it's all good.
I mean, it was so good.
I mean, you think about all the playing here. It's tasteful. It fits. It's good. They brought in Mike McCready, who was like in LA, gets picked up by Pearl Jam as kind of like their lead guy. And he, in my opinion, he plays very Hendrixy, much different than Stone Gossard. But they complement each other well. And now you got this 5-piece that's tearing it up, and put this album out, which, start to finish, just strong across the board. Yeah.
And what's also interesting about this, comparing it to the early 70s and then even some of the stuff that happened in the 80s, we've talked about how some music has the broad appeal of male and female. The surprising thing about this album, when I was at this point, I was heavily into playing with one particular cover band. We were playing like every weekend, all the time.
Okay.
We played 3 songs off of this album, like every time we played. We played Alive, we played Even Flow, and we played, believe it or not, Black. And similarly to the conversations we've had before, they were broad appeal. For whatever reason, this music, male and female, which I don't know that I would have expected, but it was just everybody got it.
I think they were marketed, in a way that, first of all, we've just touched on it. Nirvana changed the game, where suddenly it was cool to look, not to say uncool, but kind of everyday-ish, and hence the grunge, which for angsty male and females, it appeals to, in my opinion. So I think that's where the broader piece is, and the record companies and marketers were smarter than us, are going, hey, look, the response, it's on MTV. You're going, hey, that's cool. And in a lot of these videos, there are male and female. You're also having cool clubs playing back then, still live bands, live music. I mean, the scene in Singles where they're going through the club and Alice in Chains is playing up there, that is just amazing.
Yes, because they had the other bands in the show.
Right.
Which was so cool. That was
the scene.
Got to do a Singles video.
Okay.
Movie night. Man. So that movie was so cool because it captured this.
The vibe.
Whatever that thing was. And it was something really, 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 I don't know, man. I know a lot of people struggle with that time. I have such fond memories of that whole period. I loved the scene. I loved the music. Maybe it was just because I had so many amazing experiences during that period. But anyway, this was really cool.
I want to hear the review of what.
Yeah.
What
so
we
found. So like we do a lot of times on this channel, we go back and find little reviews on albums, and I found one that was put out December 13th of 1991, and this album came out August of 91,
a few months
earlier. So Pearl Jam 10.
Which, if I remember, this album took a while to kind of gain some momentum.
Yeah, and that may be. It's so funny because the memories are foggy, but I do seem to remember finding about this or hearing it after Nirvana. Like I don't think I knew about them before.
Yeah, for sure.
And then because it came out in August, so it came out a little bit, I think, before Nirvana's did, because I think Nirvana's came out in October or November of that year. With the release of Pearl Jam's 10, we can probably safely say that Seattle rock is no longer underground, alternative, underappreciated, or any such adjective. No longer just ear candy for a hip minority. Seattle grunge rock has been taken to the people by albums like Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger and Nirvana's Nevermind, now at number 6 on the Billboard album chart. That's interesting. Yeah. Pearl Jam, a reformed version of Mother Love Bone, which we already talked about, resembles Nirvana in that the band emphasizes melody over Zeppelin-like riffs, which are Soundgarden's trademark. Well, along with Alice in Chains. What's that?
I said that's well said. Actually, great opening.
So along with Alice in Chains, these groups represent a contingent that sound as if they not only emerged from the same city and played in the same bars, but also had the same parents. Each plays in roughly the same style, one that pays equal allegiance to Led Zeppelin and the Sex Pistols.
Interesting.
That's interesting. If it's true that the recent onslaught of
Powerful.
Seattle rock has a certain sameness to it, it's also true that some of the freshest sounding rock and roll in years is coming out of Seattle.
Amen. Totally true.
You know, it's when it says certain sameness, all you have to do is look at the other side of the fence of everything that was coming out of the 80s.
Right.
Because it all started. It got to the point where it's like, yep, same,
Yeah.
same.
I mean, how
same,
many copy
same.
bands,
Totally.
right?
Let's see. Like all those other bands, Pearl Jam features a vocalist, Eddie Vedder, who screams out lyrics that touch vaguely upon violence and religion almost at the same time. In the album's opener, Once, which is an amazing song,
Yeah.
Vedder seems to be rejoicing in the idea of releasing his pent-up rage through violence. Get a bomb in the temple that is going to explode. Got a 16 gauge buried under my clothes. In Alive, meanwhile, Vedder rejoices in life while questioning if he's worthy of it. You're still alive, she said, but do I deserve to be? Is that the question? And if so, who answers? Man, I remember those lyrics.
Who answers?
Who answers?
Yeah.
So cool. If the band sounds thematically confusing, well then, nobody said life was a black and white proposition. Pearl Jam's arrangements are tight and about as radio ready as any Seattle grunge band is likely to be. And speaking of other bands, Soundgarden was not really radio ready, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they fall in more towards like, you know, you can't pigeonhole them. I mean, later on when they did Super Unknown and stuff, they were
Black
more
Hole Sun.
polished. Yeah, all
that
that
obviously
stuff.
that became a huge hit.
Yeah.
And then Down Into the Upside had a couple of songs, but when you start getting back to like Bad Motorfinger, all the weird time signatures and
It was just, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is who we are.
So
And more of an acquired taste,
probably true.
you know?
Yeah. Unlike Soundgarden, not likely to embark. Oh yeah, here we go. Unlike Soundgarden, Pearl Jam is not likely to embark on a 10-minute jam session just for the hell of it. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
The only real downer on 10 is Release, which closes the album and which at 9 minutes clocks in about 4 minutes too long. A minor grievance, though, in an album that shows Pearl Jam as worthy of attention as any of the other Seattle bands. Next. And this guy gives it, I think,
4 stars.
4 stars, which
Yep.
is on this rating.
Good
That
job.
is the top thing. Anyway, so that kind of captures it.
Well done, Timothy Mayer.
Timothy Mayer does his little record review there in 1991. And you know, the reality of it, this album, it was kind of a game changer. And an interesting thing about this too, Jeremy, if I'm recalling this correctly, was the last music video they did. They consciously decided after that that they were just never going to and
Do any music videos?
There were no more music videos after that. And I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they were like
Heinrich, man in the chair.
But that was kind of it. They determined that and it was
Putting you to work,
it's
man.
an
You
interesting
can't
thing
just sit there.
because it was almost like they could see, and I don't know why they did it that way, but it's a smart move because they were easily getting overexposed, like dramatically.
Yeah, that could be true.
And I don't know if it was done for artistic reasons or if it was done for simply
You know,
we don't
I mean,
want to burn out reasons, but they just said
Whatever it
no
is,
more.
it's kind of a good move. It makes them different. Hey, we're not going to be, because I mean, how many bands from the 80s did you see all over the place all the time? The Poison, how many Poison videos were out there, and you know.
And you burn out.
Yeah.
And Pearl Jam.
And they all end up being kind of the same, you know. And so, I can see that. Hey, we're going to take a stand. If you want to see us, come see us at a show. Maybe that was kind of more their thing, or their
and then they
reasoning
had that whole
behind it.
thing with Ticketmaster. They were the guys that kind of headed that thing up too. So
That's
it
true,
was
too.
they were, you know, they were a little bit more purpose driven in that way somehow. So they made Jeremy, which was huge, and it was actually a good video too.
It's really pretty cool.
And then they said let's make a video. They said let's make a video for Black record company, and then they said no. And then they said as a matter of fact,
no more videos.
We're not doing this anymore. And it was and for whatever reason you do it, it's a really smart move, especially when you're in the process of being completely overexposed to the public.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
whoa,
at that
back
time,
up, back off.
Yeah, at that time, absolutely. That's really so very well thought out, actually.
Anyway, so it's pretty cool to get, to have this
Yeah.
on vinyl. I want to just take a look at the...
How many? I mean, there are a
label real
lot
quick.
of really big Pearl Jam fans that are really into them, and rightfully so. They got some great material out
Vance is a big Pearl Jam fan. Anyway, he's a guy
Shout
that
out.
we communicate with periodically. He has a channel, Zepp Pearl, and I think he's a pretty big Pearl Jam fan. And so anyway, if you haven't
All
seen
right.
his channel, he has some really cool records. He has a lot of really cool videos. So that's one worth checking out.
Can I
Thanks
throw
to
another-
everybody
What's that?
watching.
Can I throw another fun fact at you?
All right,
sure,
fun
do
fact.
it.
So this album drops end of August 91, and later that year they are on tour playing with their opening for Red Hot Chili Peppers and Smashing Pumpkins. Crazy tour lineup.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
That is a wild lineup.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers had actually been around for a while.
Yeah.
And yet
And then
this was the
Smashing
same
Pumpkins.
era when they kind of really, with Under the Bridge, that song
Mm-hmm.
just exploded right around all this
Yeah.
same time. And then the Pumpkins, of course, they were so interesting, so cool.
Wow, that's a
yeah,
wild
that's-
lineup. Can
yeah,
you
that
say
would- just thinking back-
anybody go and see that lineup in that show?
Again, thinking back to that time, how
'Cause how do you-
cool to
how
have
do you-
seen that.
Right, but at the same time, what tour manager's going, I'll put these three bands together? Because again, the rock scene was kind of getting more fragmented. How do you mix a Seattle band with the funky Red Hot Chili Pepper sound and like the Smashing Pumpkins, which were kind of eclectic in their own way, and put them all on the same bill? I mean, imagine that.
But somehow the fan bases for all three of those, there was overlap.
There's some
You
depth.
just knew it.
Absolutely.
So that is
That
really
is a
cool.
really cool lineup. Who went to that show?
Yeah,
Let
he
us
went
know.
there. Put it down in the comments. So, and again, thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Please leave your comments on any of this stuff, your memories, your thoughts. What did you think about this album, especially with all the other Pearl Jam albums that came after this? How did this one rank with that? And did you see them in concert? What's your favorite track on this album? Please share this with other people. For
sure.
And like the video, of course, if you're not following the channel. We really appreciate you following the channel. And with that, have yourself a fantastic week.